It's me, I'm C, and this is Kickback Astrology. Kick off your shoes and relax your feet. Alright, I'm sorry, I quit. But you know what time it is. Grab your guards, grab your woodies, grab your glasses, do what you need to do. Kick back how you kick back. I'ma kick back how I kick back. And let's get into some of these birth charts. Come on with it.
Okay, so now we're gonna get into some Kentrell's aspects in his chart. Some things that I think have significantly impacted him throughout his life, and even how we see him, overall. So first I'm gonna start with his sun being square Neptune, and like I said earlier, he had his moon in Pisces, which made him very, we're not gonna say delusional, but it all already made him, more susceptible to fantasy and things like that, and creating things that aren't necessarily seen, like bringing things from the higher and bringing into, this density where you can see it. That's why you'll see like Pisces are oftentimes like create stuff and things like that, because they're bringing that higher frequency down to earth and through their art and things like that. Now with his sun square Neptune, remember your sun is your soul. That's who you are. That's what you want to be. Now your moon is more of your feelings, what you're comfortable with. I like to think of your moon as like how you are on the inside. You know what I mean? The sun is more so, how you're out in the world. You know, who you want to be. This is what you're going for. You may not necessarily be there yet, but this is what you're trying your hardest to be. You see what I'm saying? And your rising is more so like, how you come off to people, upon like first meeting them, or if they just know of you or things like that. That's more of like your rising sign. Whereas like your sun is more what you want to be. This is what you're going for. This is how you're going to try to present yourself in the world. And your moon sign is more how you are at home, how you feel, and things like that. So, anywho, with his sun being square Neptune, like a square, let's discuss what a square is first. Square is like a conflict. It's like we're not beefed out, but like I can take you or leave you. Like sometimes we're good, sometimes we're not. Like we have conflict, but we can tolerate each other every now and then. Like that's what a square is. It's not like we hate each other. Like it's either or. Like that's the opposition. Opposition is like I don't care. I can't deal. Nope, I can't deal with you. Either you all the way over here. Pick a side. Like that's the opposition. But a square is like okay. Sometimes you be over here. Sometimes you be over here. Sometimes we can mix it, but most of the time, I'll pass. So that's what the square is. So with his son and what he wants to be, and his soul and how he puts, is just overall how he is, and you know being square Neptune, which is all about illusion, rose-colored glasses, creativity, the flow of things. You remember Neptune is the water sign. Just remember that flow when you're dealing with water signs, and remember that emotional capacity that water signs have. So with his sun being in conflict with that, a lot of the time, and remember, Neptune is it rules Pisces, so it's all about everything. It's everything. So it's a lot of madness and confusion. And a lot of times they say you'll see Neptune because Neptune is all about, they have like um, abandonment and enemies and um, like foreign places and seclusion and things like that, and spirituality and things like he's not really always able to see through, like it's a big fog over who he is, you know what I mean? He's not always able to see himself for who he really is, let alone portray himself in a way that is true to who he really is, because he doesn't always know. You see what I'm saying? He's not always able to be himself and be empathetic to everyone else and understand that higher consciousness type of thing, like, and have that creativity. He's not always able to do those two things together. Sometimes he's able to, express himself and be who he truly is without wearing all of these different masks. You know what I mean? And he's able to create. But then other times he'll let outside things and outside perceptions and what he's around and things like that. Because remember, it's everybody else, it's everything else. So he'll get caught up in these illusions and he'll lose who he really is. Like, type of thing. So he's always having that constant identity crisis. Like, like it's not as extreme as, like I said, if it was in opposition and he just totally couldn't bring them together at all. Sometimes he's able to create from a place that is genuine to him and able to empathize and things like that with others. But and then that'll, you know, drain him sometimes because he's like, I'm caring too much, I'm doing too much for other people, I'm giving too much. You know what I mean? Then he'll probably go into his, seclusion bag where he's like, nah, I'm good. I ain't dealing with nobody. And that's when you'll see him talking about like the depression and feeling like everyone is out to get him and not really trusting anybody, not even his mother type of thing. Like that's where you'll get that because he doesn't really know who he is. He doesn't really know which mask fits, you know what I mean? Like he's trying on different masks, he's doing different things with different people. He wakes up, he's different, you know what I mean? And he's not necessarily intending to, but he's working on combining these energies, you know what I mean? He's working on incorporating, that Neptunian, that fantasy, that illusion, that all of those waves, all of those frequencies that are going through his mind and all the emotions that he's experiencing, and he's trying to incorporate them into who he is, but he has trouble with doing that. So that's where you'll see, like sometimes, like even in his music, like sometimes he'll accomplish that where he's able to express himself in a way that is creative and incorporates the greater good and has a higher message and things like that. And then other times you'll see that his ego just kind of like takes over and he starts to spaz and do all kinds of extra stuff. And then you'll, on the other hand, you'll hear him speak about being depressed and things like that. You see how he's just like, it's never all of the way together. Like he can never really be himself and, you know, consider everything else and everybody else and bring that higher, greater good, higher conscious, kind of empathetic, everything is everything into who he is without totally getting lost in that illusion, you know what I mean? It's hard for him, so he'll have to balance that out. So he probably dives too deep into illusion sometimes and thinks he's something he's not. And then sometimes he probably doubts himself and has many fears and, will stop himself. And then other times he wants to be the hero, and then the next day he'll feel like the victim. Like that's what you'll get with that. And that's why we see him going through those changes. That Sun square Neptune, reinforcing that moon in Pisces, which is already fearful and empathetic and emotional and like I said, creative and engaged with the flow of life and higher like that's just reinforcing that. So when you see him with, like I said, a lot of his male role models and older males and getting faces of other men and things like that, like that's him searching for a father figure because he never had one. A lot of the times when you see like Sun Neptune aspects, you'll see like where the child like was left, like the father left, with this being his son and son being your father. It's where you see like the father wasn't around, like with those Sun Neptune aspects. So, and what we know about NBA Youngboy, his dad was in jail most of his life. So that's literally like Neptune, like your dad is in jail. Like Neptune is all about seclusion. It's all about being locked away by yourself. Like it can be jails, it can be mental institutions, it can be that, or it can just be your own self isolation where you put yourself into a room, where you lock yourself into a deep depression type of thing. So that's literally what it is in his chart. Remember, Pisces can also, it's about sacrifice, and your son is your father. You see what I'm saying? So, yeah, that was deep. Ooh, I might have went too deep on y'all, but hey, that's what I does. That's what I does. This also is why he, is always talking about hidden enemies and people being out to get him and not knowing who was going to be the one to kill him and feeling like it might be someone close to him and things like that. It also has to do with his Pluto aspect, but that Neptune, like I said, in that Pisces, the 12th house, that's your hidden enemies. That's all about, those far out fears, you know what I mean? That things that you're unaware of completely, like, whereas things that are hidden from you, like not necessarily things that you hide. So that's why he always feels like, you know, I'm never really fully in tune. Like I never really know what's going on. Like I can never really trust what's going on because, like I said, Neptune is that cloud. Neptune isn't clear. It's you never quite know. Like you know what I mean? Like I don't really know. That's why he has those, like I said, those trust issues. He never really knows those abandonment issues. He never really knows because even he has other things in his chart which bring problems with his mother. This is just with his father. Then next we'll get into the problems with his mother. Now, Youngboy also has his sun opposite Jupiter, which I'll just slightly touch on. And like we already discussed the sun, so I won't discuss that again. But with his sun opposite Jupiter, Jupiter is all about your luck. Jupiter is all about hitting the Jupiter. Jupiter is all about hitting the Jupiter, right? Jupiter is all about hitting the jackpot. Jupiter is all about expansion, exploration, adventures, you know, traveling to far off lands, higher knowledge, things like that. So with his sun being opposite that and his son being who he wants to be, like I said, his soul, what he's truly, you know, at who he's truly trying to be in this world, not necessarily how he goes out and gets it, but this is who he's truly trying to be in this world. With that being opposite Jupiter, he never really, he doesn't necessarily, no matter how much he gets, it's never enough. Like, no matter how much money he has, no matter how many chicks he has sex with, no matter how many girlfriends he has, no matter any of those things, it will never be enough. It will never be enough. So even when he does get things or good things do happen to him or he is lucky, it doesn't really have the same effect on him as it would someone else because he doesn't identify with that energy at all. Like no matter what he does, he's probably not going fast enough for himself or it's never like enough. It's just never enough. Like period. It's never enough. And then like I told you, when it's opposition, it's like they're beefed out. So a lot of the times when he's like in his ego and he's being, not necessarily being egotistical, but he's just, being himself and living life and trying to be his balanced Libra self, he feels like everyone else is lucky. You know what I'm saying? He feels like everybody else is able to expand and grow and, learn and all of these things. And I'm just stuck here like, duh. And then when, on the other hand, you know what I mean? He feels like when he's trying to grow and he's trying to expand and he's trying to learn a higher, a better way of doing things, a higher meaning to things and stuff like that. He feels like then people, you know, are not fair to, like, they don't acknowledge him, like they don't, they're all about them. Like when he's trying to do that, he's trying to learn and preach and have higher learning and meaning. Then people are all in their box and what they have going on, and just their own motives, and that's what they're all worried about. So he has trouble bringing those two together. So that's a little bit about Youngboy's sun opposite Jupiter. That's why you'll see him like where he's like they don't ever want to point out the good. Like he always says that in every interview. Like they don't ever want to point out the good. They always want to just paint a negative image of me. They never point out the good I do. You know what I mean? Even though I don't put it out there, like they never see it and whatever, what have you. That's that sun opposite Jupiter, where he's just like, dang, bro, yeah, I always get the short end of the stick. Like even if they're not, like that's just how it is. Now Kentrell has his moon opposite Venus. Now this aspect right here, this aspect says so much about him. Like this is the aspect that not necessarily is bring in this aspect in combination with, like I discussed before, that Mars and Capricorn disciplinarian type of energy. That's how he ended up with all this controversy with the abuse and everything. This moon opposite Venus. Remember, moon is all about your feelings, your emotions, what makes you comfortable, how you are at home. Venus is all about your pleasures, being harmonious, artistic, creativity, things like that. That's all Venusian. Those are all Venusian things. So when those two are opposed, and they're both benefics, remember that. So they're both. But when those two are opposed, and your moon is your mother, so he never really felt loved by his mom. Like he never really felt like that clear as day. Like that's how I saw it. Like as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh, he never felt loved by his mama. Like that's why you see him talking about his mom the way he does. Like I never had a mom. She was always about a nigga. Like that type of stuff. Like he never really felt that love from her because, like I said, in opposition, we beefed out. Like it's either one or the other. Like it ain't both. It ain't a conjunction. Like it's the opposition. That mean they weigh on two totally different ends of the spectrum. They're totally different. So his feelings and emotions and how what he feels comfortable with is not, you know what I mean, is opposing. So he can't combine, he doesn't know how to bring it together with his loving nature, his harmonious nature, his ability to compromise. He doesn't know how to do those two things simultaneously. He doesn't know how to be comfortable with all that love and harmony, which is what his son needs. I mean, like, wants, because your sun is in the sea, your moon is more of your needs, but that's what he wants, being a son in Libra. So he's not even comfortable with that internally, though. That's what's so funny. Like, he's not comfortable with all of that harmony and positivity and everything because his moon is opposing his Venus. So that's why you'll see him like walking around with that scowl, and even though he's a Libra, and Libras to be more positive, like I said, more harmonious, more loving, putting positive energy out to receive it in return. That moon opposite Venus, he's not comfortable with all of that. He's not comfortable with having that positivity around him all the time. He's not comfortable with things just being harmonious and sweet and sugarcoating shit all day long. Like he's not cool with that. He's not comfortable with that. He's not comfortable with that loving energy, so to speak. So that's why I said that's why he, talks about his mother the way he does, and this also affects, his relationship with women because remember Venus is going to be the women that he is attracted to. So when you can't be yourself and share your most internal part of you, your moon, your feelings, how you really are, you can't share yourself with the person you love or the people you love or who you're supposed to be close with, who you're relating to on a one-on-one basis. If you can't share that with them, then how are you going to build that relationship and have it be a healthy, functioning one? You're not. So that's what's creating these issues with the women in his life, along with the identity issues and him just not feeling, you know, lucky or good enough in general, or not knowing where he belongs. All of these things contribute to it. But this aspect right here is why you see him, um, like I said, throwing his girlfriend around on tape or what have you. He doesn't really, and that's why you hear him saying like he's never trusted a female, like he doesn't even trust his own mother and things like that. Like that moon opposite Venus, like that's why, like he really doesn't know how to share who he really is, like, and he doesn't know how to be in a constantly harmonious environment. He doesn't, like, he can't feel that. He can't relate to that. You know, it's just no. So that's what that does for him. And you'll see, like, just the way he talks about women and deals with women in general, it's just like, no, he's not comfortable with that energy at all. And this also, I believe, brings in insecurity within himself, because, like I said, he's a sun in Libra, so nigga, you are Venus. Like, yeah, you ain't comfortable with you, like, type of thing. But I think that's all I'll do with that, because we have a couple more aspects to his moon and Venus that will affect this as well. That will bring in the abuse aspect, because this is just about him not being able to necessarily trust women and share himself with them. You know what I mean? And deal with it being loving and harmonious all the time. But this isn't necessarily where the abuse and the control issue comes in. That's another aspect, so we'll get into that. So he's going to feel like, because moon is a bit of feeling, so he's going to feel like when he's emotional, or when he is trying to express the way he feels or something like that, then you know people are people are kind of just going to try to, like, sugarcoat stuff and kind of say, tell me what he wants to hear, and kind of just, be around him for the glitz and the glamour and, the finer things, so to speak. And then, on the other hand, when he's like, all about his own, his pleasures and what he likes and what, trying to be loving and caring or what have you, then other people, get super emotional and in their feelings and, caught up. And this isn't necessarily, one of the worst oppositions to have, but like I said, this a lot of the times this back and forth pull affects his relationship with women, because he doesn't know how to bring those two energies together. He doesn't know how to feel deeply in love at the same time, he doesn't know how to be pleasant and still feel at the same time. So sometimes he'll let his feelings take over, you know what I mean? He doesn't know how to relate how he feels at all. He just doesn't he doesn't feel that. He can't get with that, so he has to learn that, how to express. Like, he probably had a lot of issues like expressing his feelings before he got into music, and the music is this is probably why he chooses music to express himself. This just reinforces that, because he already has that sun in Libra and that moon in Pisces, so he was already going to be some form of an artist. But with this opposition, well, his artistry is probably helping him with this opposition, I would say, because it's helping him to express himself through his creativity, you know what I mean? Express his emotion, express his feeling. So that's helping him, kind of work that out. But he's not there yet, as we can see. Now, the next two, well, it's really like three, but the way I'm going to discuss is going to be like two. So the next two aspects, they're going to be like related to one another. So he has his Pluto conjunct a Lilith. And with his Pluto conjunct Lilith, remember Pluto is all about your long-term goals, those deep down fears that you have, you know what I mean, the things that you choose to hide. It's all about debt. It's all about taxes. It's all about, the intimacy, the deep things you get into after the relationship. Because remember, Libra is all about the relationship, bringing two things together. Now, Scorpio, the 8th house, Pluto rules. It's all about, like I said, debt, taxes, regeneration, the life and death, finding a deeper meaning, long-term goals. So, with that being conjunct Lilith, now what's Lilith? Lilith is that wild feminine energy. Lilith is all about that untamed, like feminine, like dark feminine energy. Like Lilith is all about standing for what you believe in, regardless. Like think of Lilith. Like Lilith was thrown out for not laying with her husband a certain way, but she stood in it, type of thing. So you'll see Lilith dominant people like they gonna stand in they shit, like straight up. They gonna stand in they stuff, like even if it doesn't necessarily work out for them, like they gonna stand in it. Like once they make a decision, like that is what it is, and it doesn't necessarily matter what's going on around them. Because remember, this is that wild, untamed feminine energy. Like just think of an animal instinct. Like it's not necessarily all about what the world wants and how you're supposed to behave and things like that, but it also has that warrior, like going against the grain energy, just because it's such a like instinctive kind of, not necessarily impulsive, but it's more of, like I said, an instinctive animal instinct kind of thing, where it's like I can't be tamed. That's the Lilith energy. Like that is the Lilith energy. Like I be thinking of like a warrior princess when I think of like Lilith. Like that's who Lilith is. Like this is what I believe in. Like this is what I'm going to stand on. Like take it or leave it kind of thing. Like, but Lilith is also very impulsive, and can go off. I mean, think of your rawest energy. Like that's can be impulsive. It can go off. It can be dark. It's not necessarily always the most positive energy, but it can get what it wants, and that's the thing about Lilith. So with Pluto and Lilith, his Pluto and Lilith being conjunct, but this aspect is going to be one of like trying to control those natural animalistic like tendencies, like, but also it's a very dark energy. Like when I first saw that, I was just like, that is such a dark energy, because it's like this wild energy, and you're bringing it in with Pluto, which is all about like I said, change, and resilience, being able to overcome things, but also going through the depths and coming out, breaking it down to build it up, type of thing. So with that being conjunct, that wild, naturally impulsive, getting what you want, not necessarily by any means necessary, but just by standing your ground in what you believe is right, and not necessarily conforming to society. This is why Youngboy seems to keep getting into like the same like not necessarily the same situations, but like trouble doesn't seem to be like stirring him away from doing more dumb stuff. Like that's what it looks like from the outside. Just that's why when you look at that's why his eyes look like that. Like that's that Pluto conjunct Lilith. And then we're taking this energy and we're squaring it. It's square his moon and his Mars. No, moon and Mars. His moon and his Venus. And we know those two are already at odds with one another. As T.I. would say, at odds with one another. So, with that energy being square his moon and Venus, this is the part that is going to bring the abuse in, because remember, Pluto can be controlling and manipulative and underhanded and, you know, power hungry and, you know, by any means necessary type of thing going on. So, with that squaring or being at conflict with how he feels and what he enjoys, he oftentimes probably he tries to control the way that not only he feels but the people that he's in a relationship with. He tries to control them. You know, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, because remember it's a square, so sometimes he can mix it, sometimes he's not, but oftentimes he can be manipulative when it comes to his feelings and emotions. He may not necessarily express them to the people around him, and especially, and then with it being square his Venus, he's not necessarily open and honest when he's with someone either. When he's in a relationship, that doesn't necessarily have to be an intimate relationship. It could be, you know, just a friend or whatever, but he's not always open and honest. He keeps a lot of things to himself. He keeps a lot of things under wraps. He's a very private person at the end of the day, but oftentimes he'll, with it being a square, he'll end up exposing things about not only himself but other people, but we're talking about him, but he'll end up exposing how he truly feels, and you know, with that being his moon, and he'll end up exposing, you know, his love for, or showing love to people and things like that, because it's not an opposition. He's not totally incapable. So sometimes he's on the up and up, and he can relate to others without that manipulative ulterior motive. But a lot of the time, when he's dealing with people, or when he's sharing his feelings or what have you, or relating to someone, with it being his moon and Venus, he's doing it with an ulterior motive. He's doing it in a manipulative manner. He's not truly sharing how he really feels about the situation. He may hold things in if it benefits him, or he may overreact to try to, you know, sway the situation in his favor. Like, he can be very manipulative. And then remember, his Pluto is conjunct Lilith, so that's going to bring that impulsivity to him. That's going to bring, like I said, that forbidden fruit, that untouchable, that willing to stand for what they believe in, you know what I mean? But Lilith is also, like I said, that wild feminine energy, so it's going to be able to attract a lot of things. Remember, forbidden fruit, it'll attract it. You don't need to eat it, but you still for some reason need to. That, so he's going to be able to attract a lot of things to him, but these aren't necessarily going to be the most positive things. Remember, it's conjunct Pluto, so he'll be attracting all of the low lives, all of the, you know what I mean, scandalous women. Like, he'll be attracting some stuff. Like, don't think he's just out here. You know, he's definitely in the game. Trust and believe. Like, he's in the game. He's attracting all kinds of things to him, like, for good or for bad. And from the looks of his chart, usually for bad. Not trying to be funny, but it is what it is. But also, like I said, Pluto will bring that controlling aspect, so he'll end up trying to control. Like, he probably tries to control his mother, with his mom being his mother, and he tries to control the women that he is with. Now, he may not always be this way. Like I said, it's a square, but he does have that within him. That's where you'll see that abuse, and you'll see him saying things like, you know, like I sacrifice anything for you, da 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 da, whatever have you. But he has that in him where he wants to control things. Then remember, he has that Mars and Capricorn, that authority figure. And remember that, like I said, that moon opposite Venus, where he already doesn't feel love, and he already has certain insecurities within him. So, and then that Pluto is just going to bring, even more of a thirst for power and control and needing things to be a certain way and being fixed in that, because that's going to bring a fixed energy to it. So that's where you'll see the abuse come in, where he's going to try, oh, you ain't going to do it. He's going to try to make you do it because he feels like, you know what I mean, that he would do anything for you, so you should do anything for him, and you shouldn't say, like, you shouldn't go against him in any way, or that he feels like you're going against him, you know what I mean? And then it's very long term. Remember, Pluto is long term, so he'll be in these, dysfunctional relationships and things like that for a very long time. Like, even his relationship with his mother, remember, is squaring his moon as well. So even that relationship is probably dysfunctional. Maybe she was very controlling over him at one point in his life, or you know what I mean? Maybe she has that I don't want to say. Maybe his mom is a very, dark person herself. Like maybe she's very manipulative herself, and he's seen her, work her hand. Maybe she's manipulating him. Maybe she's using him. Maybe he feels used by his own mother. So he uses others, or maybe I don't know how he grew up. You know what I mean? I don't know everything. I just know what he says in interviews. But that's what his chart is laid out like. Because remember that Pluto is also square his moon, so he could have gotten a lot of those things from his mother. And we see how his mother talks. She'll go off in a heartbeat. And you can get that with a Scorpio where they'll hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. And you'll never know. And then they'll go off. That's that Pluto. That's that Pluto. Like I said, they'll hold it if it's beneficial for them, but they will go. And when they go, they might kill you. You might not even know a Scorpio don't like you, and you end up dead, and you don't even know why. And they played it off cool the whole time, because remember, it's under wraps. It's the underworld. It's not to be seen. Even though it's a dark energy, it's not to be seen. So he's not going to necessarily show us that side of him as well. So you have to take that into consideration. So even though that Sun in Libra, he's going to put his relationships on display and things like that, we don't necessarily know what's going on behind, that image, behind those closed doors. We don't know, because that Pluto comes out. And once that Pluto comes out, trust me, it's going to get ugly. Trust me.
So that was part 4, all about Kentrell aspects in his chart. We got to get a little bit deeper into his chart. We didn't go all the way in. We didn't get everything, but we got some of it. Hopefully you'll get a little deeper understanding, of where he's coming from. We got to see some of the identity issues that he's having based around his father being in jail. We got to see how his relationship with his mother may not have necessarily been as loving as he would have liked it to be. And we also, got into some of that controlling, possessive nature that he has, and that, wild against the grain energy that he often portrays, that impulsivity. So, as always, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think down below. Make sure you kick back with some of my other videos. Come on with it.